Fire, which was 5 kilometers away earlier today, that has moved closer. The Parks Canada folks told us that a variety of methods were tried today. Some of them, though, not successful just due to the conditions. It's been very windy, and they were expecting more rain tomorrow, but now that forecast is not so optimistic. They're only expecting trace amounts of rain overnight and tomorrow. So that will make for challenging conditions for those firefighters who are still in the park.
CBC's Madeline Cummings in Hinton, Alberta tonight. Well, here in BC, there are new orders to leave. An evacuation order has come down for the entire village of Silverton. The Shetland Creek fire is now threatening the safety of that community. The order also includes 17 addresses in Electoral Area H. Anyone in the affected areas is asked to leave now. The Shetland Creek wildfire is now estimated at 4 square kilometers. It is one of 4 wildfires of note burning in BC. And the Cariboo Regional District has issued an evacuation order for Electoral Area G due to the Moose Valley wildfire. The order affects 54 parcels in the Moose Valley fire area. The district says the fire is an immediate danger to life and safety, and evacuees are being told to proceed to Highway 97, then head south to 100 Mile House. And Drive BC is reporting the closure of a stretch of Highway 95 after a wildfire jumped the road. The highway is closed in both directions, beginning just south of the community of Edgewater, heading north to the entrance of the town of Golden. And hundreds of people have been displaced from their homes, and thousands remain on evacuation alert as those wildfires continue to burn across this province. More than 430 active wildfires are burning, according to the BC Wildfire Service, most of them sparked by lightning. As Katie DeRosa reports, with strong winds in the forecast for parts of the interior, the province remains on high alert.
Our main concern is our chickens.
Lucy Jeffrey is staying as positive as she can. She and her family were forced from their home in Wells on Sunday because of the Antler Creek wildfire. They're now in Quesnel, hoping and waiting.
At the moment, I'm thinking it's a really big fire, and yeah, I don't see it being put out in the next couple days, because I mean, it's like 140 square kilometers.
Other evacuees are putting their faith in wildfire crews.
Sprinkler systems have been set up on every building in Barkerville. They're doing everything they can. There's crews on the ground fighting the fire in Barkerville.
The mayor of Wells says fire has destroyed some homes in his community, a small mining town in the Cariboo.
I'm aware of two homes that have been lost.
BC's emergency management minister could not confirm the number of homes lost due to wildfires, but she warns that strong winds in the forecast for parts of the interior could fan the flames.
And we may see more evacuation alerts and more evacuation orders in the days ahead.
More than 500 people have been forced to flee their homes, and 5,000 British Columbians are on evacuation alert.
Fortunately, that is down from 7,000 people from just yesterday, as the evacuation alert in Williams Lake has been lifted now that the River Valley wildfire is under control.
Most evacuations are due to the Antler Creek wildfire near Valemont, the Shetland Creek blaze in the Venables Valley, and the Alwyn Creek and Comonco Creek wildfires in the Kootenays. Meanwhile, the federal minister for emergency preparedness says international help is on the way.
So we do have support coming from Mexico, South Africa, and support from Australia and New Zealand has already arrived to help fight the wildfires.
Premier David Eby says the province has improved its emergency assistance program. Evacuees can now sign up online for support and quickly get an e-transfer of $200 per day if they have to flee.
So we do have improved systems for evacuees to be able to access resources such as housing and money for food when they have to leave.
Those improvements come after problems during last summer's devastating wildfire season. Many evacuees complained it was too complicated to receive emergency help. Eby also says the government has improved communication between provincial wildfire fighters and municipal crews. And for the first time, firefighters battling blazes in the dead of night will be equipped with night vision goggles. Katie DeRosa, CBC News, Victoria.
Let's go now to the Shetland Creek fire. That's the largest wildfire in our province right now. It's currently deemed out of control and has led to 4 evacuation orders and 6 evacuation alerts. One of the communities under alert is Ashcroft, a village that has lived under the threat of fire before in 2017 and 2021. The mayor says people are prepared to leave if necessary and are now focused on using sprinklers to create a moisture barrier above structures wherever they can.
And the sprinklers are not to put the fire out. They create a humidity bubble around the building, so it's like a moisture barrier so that those embers don't get through, so that the fire is lazy. If it encounters something that it can't burn, it will find something else.
Residents of a long-term care facility have been moved out of the community as a precaution. People in Ashcroft have also rallied to support firefighters after provisions from the government arrived later than expected. Volunteers fed 62 people today and plan on feeding 100 people tomorrow.
So while they're fighting the fuels of the fire, they're not being refueled themselves. And Jan, one of our volunteers, her nephew is on the fire line, and he said they needed socks. So it was just amazing this morning. I mean, one of the firefighters was so happy. He said, "This is my last pair of socks I was down to." So they came right on time for him.
And as those volunteers prepare to help firefighters, there are warnings Highway 1 could close on short notice. The flames are dangerously close to the highway, and that fire is burning out of control. Let's go now to Vancouver Island, where the Old Man Lake fire north of Sook has grown to nearly 2 square kilometers and is categorized as out of control. Discovered on Monday near Sook Potholes Provincial Park, the wildfire was just 1/5 the size yesterday. Smoke from the fire was visible in parts of Greater Victoria today. This morning, the air quality index in some parts was a 7 out of 10. Environment Canada recommends people in the area limit outdoor exercise and consider air filters indoors. The Wildfire Service says that fire was human-caused. If you have pets, you know how hard it can be to quickly move them in case of an emergency, and that's no different during wildfire evacuations. An animal shelter in Kamloops run by the volunteer-based Canadian Disaster Animal Response Team, or CDART, is trying to make life a little easier for pets and their parents fleeing the flames.
Ideally, people want to keep their animals with them, and that's better for everybody. But if they can't, at least they've got a safe alternative where they know their animals will be well cared for.
CDART says keeping animals sheltered in a cool place should be a priority for owners forced to evacuate. Well, Vancouver police are still investigating 2 different cases of 2 women found dead on beaches around English Bay.
We do not believe criminality was a factor. However, and that's the case of the woman who was found on Kitts Beach on Monday afternoon. However, in the first case, the woman who was found Sunday morning at Sunset Beach, we're still conducting investigation. We're still working with the coroner service, and we have not yet determined how she died or whether or not her death was the result of a crime.
Investigators have determined the 2 deaths are not connected. The first body was discovered Sunday morning at Sunset Beach. The second was found Monday afternoon near the Kitsilano Yacht Club. VPD has identified the 2 women and informed their respective families they are withholding their identities. Well, a BC judge has issued a scathing ruling. The Victoria Provincial Court Justice says unacceptable delays in BC's court system have forced the staying of a criminal charge against a man accused of sexually assaulting a 6-year-old girl. As Jason Proctor explains, the delays push the trial beyond an 18-month limit set by Canada's Supreme Court.
So this case involves a 6-year-old girl who was allegedly sexually assaulted in December 2021. The child's mother went to police, and almost immediately the man accused of this crime goes through his lawyer to the Crown to say, I want to deal with this as expeditiously as possible. But what we've found out from this court ruling is that is not what happened at all. It took more than 3 months to assign a Crown counsel to the case. There ultimately were scheduling delays, including time or problems booking the time of a semi-retired judge who was overseeing the case. And when it sort of did finally start going through the process of going to trial over a number of days, over months, what started as a prosecutor saying she would need 1 hour with the mother of the child, that 1 hour turned into a day and a half. The Supreme Court of Canada has set a limit on the amount of time that you have to hear a case in provincial court, which is 18 months. That's considered a ceiling, not a floor. And as the judge in this case tallied everything up, he ultimately found that it did not meet that, and so had to throw the case out, stay the proceedings, the charges, because of delay. That has raised the ire of critics of the government who say this is an administration of justice problem, and specifically a problem managing the resources of the court. Delay is an issue you hear about all the time in the courts. And as I say, the judge in this case said, you know, this case, the alleged sexual assault of a 6-year-old child should be the highest priority this court can deal with, and that no child this child is now going to be nearly 9 years old, should have to deal with this for 3 years, fully half or a third of their life by the time that this comes to trial. Jason Proctor, CBC News, Vancouver.
Well, Vancouver City Council has voted unanimously to streamline part of its transit network. Opposition councillor Christine Boyle wanted to address delays and overcrowding on some of the city's busiest bus routes. So she brought this forward this motion, and Michelle Morton has those details.
It includes 8 corridors identified as some of the city's busiest bus routes in TransLink's bus speed and reliability report. She says all-day bus lanes are one of the fastest and most cost-effective ways to improve public transit.
The more that we can introduce measures that improve bus speed and reliability, the more people who are going to choose the bus when it works for them, which is a benefit for people who are driving too, because it reduces vehicle traffic.
So dozens of speakers attended or called into a public meeting, including students from out of town who commute in. Some raised concerns about how long their commutes are, along with overcrowding, but also air pollution and climate change. Council eventually passed Boyle's motion unanimously after ABC councillor Sarah Kirby-Young suggested they include a motion she brought to council last October. It prioritized 5 congested routes, 4 that were included in Boyle's motion, plus Granville Street. And Kirby-Young says work has already started.
We have a work plan. Our staff are fully on it, and that should all complete by 2026. So that's a pretty good, significant amount of work done in 2 years. And people will see, for example, the early work on Granville Street completing next year.
Now, as for how they're going to operate and look, it depends on where they're located.
It really does depend how built up an area it is, and if there are other uses, whether it's restaurants, patios, those kinds of things. So I think the design tries to really be sensitive to that.
As for what's next, Kirby-Young says the city has secured $11 million in TransLink funding by the new year for these lanes, and they'll be looking at seeking additional funding to support these additional corridors.
CBC's Michelle Morton reporting. The City Council says it will also install suicide prevention fencing on Granville Street Bridge, but that could still be years away. The city says there are challenges in securing the millions of dollars needed to get the barriers in place. Police say Granville Bridge had the second highest number of calls linked to suicide or mental health last year. Members of the Granville Island community shared the grief and upset of some of those calls.
It's devastating. The guy that jumped in front of the creek house, I was there when he jumped. I was on the front porch. You can prevent that.
The Crisis Centre of BC says the decision doesn't address the urgency of the issue, and that while the city is demonstrating its dedication to the crisis, it would have liked council to prioritize immediate safety on Granville Bridge. And in another significant outcome, City Council has voted 6-5 in favor of restoring the natural gas option for heating and hot water in new home construction. Advocates say the decision will help with housing affordability, but critics argue the gas ban repeal will push up energy costs instead.
What it does mean is more upfront cost and kind of logistics for the builders. And I think that's really what was driving this, was sort of the developer interest rather than the consumer interest. So
The bylaw amendment was made possible by Mayor Ken Sim, who was able to cast the tie-breaking vote via Zoom while on vacation. The mayor's office says the decision will help build more attainable housing fast. Coming up, Team Malaysia takes to the sky. It was day 2 of the celebration of lights, lighting up English Bay. The Bank of Canada has cut its key interest rate further to 4.5%. Governor Tiff Macklem says the overall weakness in the economy is bringing inflation down, but price pressures in some sectors are holding it up.
If inflation continues to ease broadly in line with our forecast, it is reasonable to expect further cuts in our policy rate. The timing will depend on how we see these opposing forces playing out. In other words, we will be taking our monetary policy decisions one at a time.
This is the second consecutive interest rate cut since March 2020. In April 2022, the bank began an aggressive cycle of rate hikes as it tried to ease high inflation. The inflation rate fell 2.7% in June, but the central bank warns that the path back to its target of 2% inflation could be bumpy. The second night of this celebration of light took place this evening in front of thousands of spectators. Team Malaysia, also known as Team Pyrotaxed, lit up the skies of English Bay. It was day 2 of the celebrations, and if you missed tonight, no sweat. Next up, the United Kingdom will take to the skies on Saturday as the final day of the annual competition. And here's a live shot of Science World. Russ will have your full forecast next.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox.
Applications are now open for CBC's Indigenous Pathways to Journalism program. This paid 9-month learning and development opportunity supports Indigenous candidates to really hone their skills as storytellers. Indigenous Pathways provides journalism training, career development support, and work experience. Applicants do not require journalism education or experience to apply. Learn more at cbc.ca/pathways.
The weather update is brought to you by Direct Buy Furnace. To cool and clean the air in your home, call Direct Buy Furnace. Installing Trane, the most reliable heating and cooling brand.
And And Russ LeCate joins us now for a look at the forecast ahead. We certainly felt that cool down here in Vancouver. Will those conditions help with the wildfire conditions elsewhere in the province?
I think they will, Michelle. Yeah, it's a really good point because I was about to talk about the rain, but it is the cooler air as well. And very quickly, I want to show you the difference that 48 hours made from Monday to earlier today. Across large swaths of the Northwest, we went from a moderate fire danger to low to very low. In a number of areas across the Northeast, including the Peace region, we went from high to extreme down into a wide swath of moderate fire danger. And the reason was we got a lot of rain that went across the northern part of the province. It was on the order of 15 to 25 millimeters. Some of the areas like Dease Lake hit hard. Even up in Fort Nelson, 20 millimeters, 15 for Fort St. John. Prince George got some rain yesterday, got some extra rain earlier today, and all of that is sort of aiding with the forest fire danger rating that's going on around the province. Earlier today, we had a number of severe thunderstorm watches and warnings up. They're coming down now as most of these storms will move north out of our region. We're watching the jet stream, the leading edge carrying the cool air across the province. In terms of our rainfall amounts for the central interior parts of the Cariboo down towards the Columbia, we are going to get significant rain between now and the end of the day tomorrow. I'd suggest maybe about 15 millimeters in and around the central interior, perhaps as much as 20 in the Cariboo, 5 to 15 millimeters for the northern sections of the Columbia. However, from the South Thompson, from Kamloops down to the Okanagan, down into the Kootenays, no, there's not a lot of rain, maybe 1-2 millimeters worth, something like that. Your province-wide forecast for tomorrow, it does include some showers into Kamloops, maybe the isolated thunderstorm or two. Look at that, 22 degrees. A few days back, it was in the low 40s, so it's really cooling down. Okanagan, 21. Central interior and the Cariboo, definitely cooler all the way around. For Metro Vancouver, we'll call it seasonal stuff, but not tomorrow. That one's in the teens with a chance of a morning shower. Heading into the weekend, a little extra sun for Saturday, Michelle.
Feels like it's been a while since we had some rain.
Well, it's been a long time.
Thanks, Russ. And that's your late news for Wednesday. Thank you for joining us tonight. For news anytime, you can visit our website, cbc.ca/BC. Your next local news is on the early edition on CBC Radio 1, and that starts tomorrow morning at 5:30. Good night.